it won't work. What you have to have is a code. And the code has to be focused on doing one thing, replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That should be cemented in every non-white person's mind on the planet, 24 hours a day. Code is nothing but a way of doing things that will get the best and most constructive result. That's all. Everything in the universe is either constructive or non-constructive. When people get up every day, every minute of every day, like right this minute, what we're doing now, this conversation we're having, it's going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. And within that realm, I'd like to say this right now, within that ballpark, that this is not to condemn people who are what you call gay or something like that as people, because they are people. We have them in our families. We know people personally and all like that.
Absolutely.
We're not beating up on them. We're saying what the white supremacist agenda is, because just like they have an agenda for sex between, among black people, they have an agenda in religion, which is another one that they're going to start working on, and then they're going to merge it, the sexual confusion, with the religious confusion. It's already started, because just on the issue of sex alone, you have confusion in the churches now. See, people are beginning to, look at each other and whatnot and reassess this whole thing. And the churches, the preachers are beginning to say, well, are we going to have in the Negro church and the black church, are we going to have same-sex marriage in this church or not? And then what else are we going to have? Are we going to have programs where we encourage it? Are we going to have programs where not just same-sex marriage, but are we going to have programs where we actually have fornication and endorse it, because that's next, and endorse it as part of the church program? Actually have people come over and fornicate in the church. That's coming. I'm going to repeat that. That is coming. Once you confuse anything in sexuality, I mean, we all confuse sexually. I mean, including all the so-called straight people,
That's
which is
right.
another word, by the way.
Tell the truth.
You know what I mean? Sex has never been what it ought to be among the
truth.
people of this planet. It
That's
has
right.
never been. Even ancient preachers will tell you that, starting with Adam and Eve. Sex has always been messed up. But the question is, do you want to make it messier? Or do you want to try to head toward what sex is supposed to be at its very best? Not just something to do, not just more and more variety, but at its very best. In the same way with religion or economics and whatnot. You can have a shoddy economic system, or you can have the best economic system. You can have a shoddy educational system, or you can have the best. Whatever the best is, you have to kind of search around and find it. And it's the same way with sex and religion. But I'm saying, when you, as far back as I was going to church, in the so-called Christian church, I was taught certain rules governing sexuality. Now, when there are no rules in sexuality, then someone is going to step forward in every church down the road, people who were born in all this sexual confusion, and say, since people do fornicate, and there are really no laws against it, and they are doing away with all the laws against adultery and all like that, then what are we coming to church for? And they'll say, well, we come to church just to be with our friends and socialize, which is what we mostly do anyway.
That's right.
All right, we sing and talk about Jesus, but when it comes to what we actually do, we come here to be with our friends and all that, and eat some food and all like that. Well, along with eating food, that's a form of enjoyment, right?
Yes.
After we have church services, we go in the basement, we eat, we have a potato salad and whatnot, the traditional foods that you have at a church dinner. You have dinners in church. Say, well, since this is a tradition, why not have sex in the church? And they'll say, oh, well, now, wait a minute. I mean, that might be going against some of our religious principles. I mean, we do have some rules when it comes to sex. And they say, what rules? Because you will have had about 3 generations coming up saying, what rules are you talking about, Reverend? What rules are you talking about? They say, well, we have rules of marriage. Oh, what kind of rules do we have of marriage? I mean, I mean, hey, not really. I mean, we marry males and females right here in the church, and we used to not do that. And the preacher will have to say, well, that's right, we did change that. They say, well, just like we changed that, how come we can't change and have a fornication program? How come? Since we're fornicating in the church anyway, including the reverends and the deacons are fornicating.
That's right.
We all know that. So we're not going to be hypocrites. So why not just do what we do behind closed doors when we leave the church? Why not just do it in the church? Because God knows what we're doing anyway. Somebody's going to make that argument. We need to get away from the hypocrisy, Reverend. We got to get away from this hypocrisy. That's what's been destroying the church down these years. Somebody's going to be saying that. So the Reverend say, well, how do we get rid of the hypocrisy? Say, come out in the open with everything you're doing. Now, that would be a logical argument when it reaches that point.